Holy crap, he's going to go to hell for that. No, you're this guy. Hi, everybody. My name's Chet W. I'm an addict from Watertown, South Dakota. And, you know, I don't think I have a book. This book here I got when I was in Lafayette from the Freedom Group, and they did all that beautiful little artwork, and they did writings in there. Down there, they called me Mr. Chester. And on every book, they always knew that I'm a big believer in growing or going. So they put it on the book for me underneath a tree, and it says grow or go. And that's been a fact for me. You know, that's the way it was for me. You know, coming to Narcotics Anonymous and either growing or going. You know, the seed was planted. Now it's up to me. There's old timers. I don't know if you guys like that word, but there was old timers there that loved me when I hated myself. I didn't think much of myself when I walked into the doors. I didn't even want to be there. I thought I knew more than everybody else did. And, you know, at that time, I had beautiful, long, black hair. I was slim and trim and buff, you know, and full of shit. You know, that's what my first sponsor told me. He says, you know, Chet, he says, one day you're going to blossom into a beautiful, flowering, shrubbery, beautiful bush because you have a lot of fertilizer. And you're just reaping with shit, you know, and you know what? Those types of things kind of get to me when older members, when they talk to me in this way. But, you know, they used to say things, some of you might remember this, you know, work the steps or die, mother effer. That kind of stuff. They get right in your face. Work the steps or die, mother. And, you know, I heard that. That's the kind of stuff I related with when I first came around. But, you know, let's get to the point. You know, why are we here? You know, why are we in Narcotics Anonymous? Why am I here tonight? Why did, you know, the body here ask me to come instead of somebody else? That's a lot of whys. I don't have the answer for it, but I believe that there's a power greater than me that's behind the making of it. Because when I got up this morning in Watertown at 2 a.m. to come here, there was a big storm in the mist coming on the way. You know? And I had to try to get out in front of the storm because I wasn't going to leave until like 6, 7 a.m. then catch my flight and get here. Well, it wasn't that way. It wasn't that easy for me this morning. So I get up and I couldn't sleep all night because I can't go to sleep at 6 and sleep. You know, so I just laid and thought about things, meditated about things. You know, I did that thing where, you know, I breathe in my higher power and I exhale my fears. I breathe in God and I let my fears go out with my exhale. And I couldn't sleep, so I was doing that. And in the process of doing that, I thought, the hell with it. I'm just going to go get in the car, start it up, get ready to go, let my dog out. My sponsee's coming to take care of my dog while I'm gone. And so anyways, the car was running for about a half hour. And I go out there and it's smoking. You know, it's smoking like crazy and it smells like burning wires, and I'm thinking the car's going to burn up, and I'm like, holy crap, I won't be able to get there with this car. You know, so I go out and the heater, the fan in the heater stopped working and, you know, it shorted out. So it was like maybe 10 below zero. And I drove 4 hours with no heat in that car to get here. And on my tail, all the way was a storm that started dropping the snow in front of me, and I drive out of it and it would stop and that snow was behind me all the way to the airport. And I got to the airport, and that GPS kept taking me to the wrong parking lot, and I couldn't figure out. So I get in this place, and you can't go forward without putting your credit card in this thing for the gate to let you through. So that ain't working out, you know. So I have to put my card in. I go through, I get out the other side, put my card in, and they don't charge me. So I go around with the GPS again. Takes me to the same damn place. And now, you know, how many times do you think I did that before I realized this shit wasn't working? You know, 5. It was 5 times. You know, I really love pain. So anyways, it was 5 times. I go around this whole loop, and finally I see this lady in this booth, and I pull over and I says, how in the hell do you get to the parking ramp? And she says, oh, you just go out here and take a right and take a left, take the next exit and take a right, and you're there. I'm like, so I did that, and I got there. So anyways, we had all these storms, you know, and this parking lot's outside, and all the snow is like all this deep in all the parking spots, but they plowed through, and all these cars are buried in there and stuff. And so I have to drive into the spot through the snow, and I got stuck about 3 or 4 times and kept rocking the car back and forth, and finally got it in there. So you think that by this time I would be a raving asshole, out of my mind, right? So I parked the car, and as soon as I parked the car and walk out, there's a bus there to pick me up and take me to the airport. Right? So they get me to the airport, and I go in, I go through everything, and then the flight is delayed because of snow. And the snow is coming down now in Minneapolis pretty hard. And so the flight's delayed, and then it's delayed again, then it's delayed again. And finally the flight gets there, and then they're shooting all this stuff all over it. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to get on this freaking flight. This shit's scaring me. You know, I'm scared to fly anyways, you know. I mean, I usually drive everywhere, right? But I'm scared to get on this plane. And this really is causing me to have a lot of fear, you know, because I'm thinking, I'm watching my life flash in front of my eyes in my head, you know. And so anyways, finally the plane does come, and I get here 3 hours late, right? And then when I'm on the plane, the stewardesses are really assholes to the people on the plane. And they're telling them to shut up and be quiet and all this and then. And I'm just sitting there watching the show go on around me, with normies. And the flight really wasn't that good. So then I get here, and thank God, a friendly face from NA came and picked me up at the airport. You know, Janice, she showed up in this van and picked me up at the airport, gave me a ride to the hotel, and I got my room, got in. And by this time, you know, I was starving to death because I haven't ate all day. And you can tell I could, you know, I'm not going without food. You know, one good thing about this thing right here is that when you're in the grocery store and you're trying to pick out a good melon, you know, you can really use that. You can go over there and top the melon. Works every time. You get the ripest melons that way. So, you know, you got to see the good in everything, right? Even your tummy. I'm still having a lot of fun with that one yet. So anyhow, as the story goes, I get to my hotel, I get something to eat, and I'm so tired I can't function. And I'm starting to get this thought that maybe I should see if I can switch with somebody and talk at a different time because I just can't function. So I went to my room and I died until about 9:30. I just happened to wake up, it was 9:30, and then Joe called me right at 9:30. And so I came straight over here. You can tell I still haven't got my little thingy that you're all wearing yet. But here I am. So now what I'm sharing this with you for is we got to start behaving like grown-ups in Narcotics Anonymous. You know, when I came here, I was a broken down little child. I hated myself. I hated everything around me. I didn't understand and couldn't comprehend love because I didn't have it to give. I couldn't feel anymore. I just didn't want to live. That's how I came here. I came here not trying to solve a hopeless dope problem, but I came here to find hope so that I could solve the problem. And that's what I found here. There was members in the fellowship that loved me when I hated myself. I didn't really know how to accept the hugs, and I thought they were kind of funny when they were hugging me. And, you know, I have to say that how in the hell can you guys take this weather? Do you realize I just came from like 10 below zero? And you saw what I was wearing when I walked in here? And I was like I just walked out of a freaking sauna. Man, I'm still dripping. Holy cow. I need some cold. I need some cold. That's what I'm used to, is cold. So now I want to share what I'm here to talk to you about. All that other stuff was just bullshit. But before I get started, I want to, you know, for those of us, you know, I hope that there are some newcomers in this room. And I got a message for you guys. Now, I want to tell you guys everything that you need to know about sex. Okay, right off the bat, you know, because when you come into Narcotics Anonymous, there's plenty of volunteers, and you're probably a volunteer to them as well. But, you know, think of it this way, you know, I have this little story I tell about this boy. He's training this dog. And the dog wouldn't stay in the yard, but he's trying to train the dog to stay in the yard. And so the dog finally gets it and starts staying in the yard. And then one day, the dog gets out and takes off. And he runs up on the railroad tracks. And up on the railroad tracks, he's up there playing, having a hail day, and the boy's trying to figure out where his puppy is. And all of a sudden, the dog sits down, you know, on the track, and a train came by and cut his tail off. Well, the dog freaked out, you know, and he jumped up and started spinning around in circles and circles and circles, trying to figure out, where in the hell is my tail? Well, he stuck his head under that train and cut his head off. And the moral of that story is, don't lose your head over a piece of tail. And that's everything you guys need to know about that. You know, I'm so grateful that I have an opportunity to really just feel good life today. You know, because I know that I've been set free. When I came to Narcotics Anonymous, I'm going to tell you how I got here. I came from a family extremely dysfunctional. My mother and father, all my relatives were pretty heavy drinkers. They weren't really into dope, but alcohol is a drug, is how we view it. So anyways, I noticed that one thing is that this stopped. But anyways, I noticed one thing is that there was a time when I was 15 years old. There was a time when I was 15 years old where I was having an argument with my mother. And it was bad. And I looked my mother in the eye and I says, Mom, I says, why can't you tell me you love me? Can you tell me you love me? And she just looked at me and she couldn't tell me that she loved me. And I'd do the same with my father. All I wanted to do, all I wanted from them is just them to acknowledge me, that they loved me and that they cared about me and that they could feel who I was so I could feel them. But they couldn't. That's really a hard moment for me because that's how I grew up, not really being able to feel that. And I remember being in trouble, going home, standing out on the sidewalk, and I could hear them just really fighting inside the house. And I would yell, just yell, God, why in the hell, that ain't the word I used, but why in the hell did you put me with this family? Why did you do this to me? And I hated God for letting me be there. So anyways, one day, I saw a hippie going by and he turned me on the mescaline. And you know what? That was the first time in a long time that I felt good. That dope he gave me was mescaline, and it made me feel good. It made me feel like what my father couldn't give me. It made me feel good. And that's what I'm sharing with you is the reason I used dope was for the effect. I was looking for an effect that the dope produced for me. Coming up to my bottom, when I hit my bottom, uh, I finally got to a point to where when I got near my bottom a couple years before I actually hit it, I was in the military overseas during Nam and over in Germany. And, I was married, had a son, had a wife and a little daughter. And, when I was over there, I was doing what I always do, the dysfunctional me. I was cheating on her. I was with Heidi. That was her name, Heidi. And we were out on this big walk through the woods, and I'm just wasted on hashish, and these NCOs come running up and catch me, and it's a Saturday. That ain't supposed to happen. But they come and they catch up with me and they tell me, you turn your ass around right now, leave her here, and you run. There's about 5 miles away to the truck. And they says, if we catch you, you're going to regret it. And I believed them. They made me believe them. And I ran, and they were all right on my tail. And I got to the truck. It was a 1.25 ton. They took me back to Garrison. And when I got to Garrison, see, the other part of this is that my wife was also cheating on me. See, and she put my son, who was 18 months old, and my daughter, who was 4 months old, in a bathtub together while she was partying, so she wouldn't be bothered. And so when I got back to Garrison, they told me to sit down, and they said to me, your daughter's dead. And you're going back stateside now on emergency leave. Your daughter's passed away. And I couldn't believe it, you see, because I love my daughter. She meant everything to me, my little girl. I couldn't believe it all the way back on that long flight, all the way home. I cried, and I just could not accept the fact that my daughter was gone. And I got back stateside, and I met up with my wife, and we went down, I don't know if it was a morgue or someplace where they kept her. And I got in there, and here was my little girl laying on a slab like that with stainless steel. She had no clothing on. And I went over to her and I picked her up. and we had to clothe her and get her ready for her funeral. And, you know, when I picked my daughter up and I held her and I was crying, and you know, I've shared this before, but I gave up on life at that moment. I just gave up on living. I didn't want to live anymore. I couldn't want to, it was, I just took out a death wish. I just couldn't go on. It was so hard to accept and so hard to go through the death of something that you loved and cared for so much, because here I am out doing what I'm doing. She's out doing what she's doing, and something so innocent gets lost. No one in this room should ever have to experience this. Grandparents or parents should never have to experience what the devastation of the disease of addiction can do. I went 2 years after that trying to die. I just wanted to die. I used, if you had it, I used it. I didn't give a shit what it was. Every time I used, I withdrew. I got mean to people. I was angry. I hurt people. I did some really terrible things. And I did many things that should have been about them that wasn't. Okay? That wasn't. Until, you know, I tried to harm 3 people, I mean, in a serious way. And I got hit from behind, and I was bleeding out, and they thought I was dead. And they were picking me up off the floor, stuck in my own blood. And they were hauling me off upstairs, up these stairs, and all I can remember was like what a stunned cow would be like. Everything was echoey and all around. They took me to the hospital for treatment because of the concussion was so bad. And I tried to attack the doctor, and I don't remember that, but they took me and threw me in a cell. And that next morning, I woke up with my head stuck on the sheet because of the blood. Well, you know, when I was coming to, I was hoping that I really wasn't where I thought I might be, because I heard like the TV was real loud, and it was Popeye was on TV. And when I come to, I had this little bracelet on that meant it was a felony. And I was locked in the cell with these guys. And I went and I looked in this little stainless steel mirror that was on the wall, and it had been all scratched up, you know, and you could barely see yourself in it. So I had to get really close because, you know, I wanted to see what had happened to me. And I got so close that I almost touched my nose on it. And at the time I did that, it was like my eyes looked right back down inward into my heart and my soul. And it's the first time that I didn't say, could it be the drugs? It was the first time I knew it was, and I needed help. Because reality-wise, I really didn't want to die. There was something inside me crying out, I didn't want to die. I wanted to live. I just wanted something to make the pain go away, and the suffering, and the heartache. That's how I found you. That's how I found you. Someone bailed me out. And I don't know yet to this day, I don't know who did that. And I stumbled 8 miles from that jail out there. What do they call that jail, Joe? Huh? No, the jail out there, Ada County. And I staggered home back to 24th and Idaho. And that has been about 8 miles at least. And I staggered all the way there to the family. See, and at that time, I had been living under a bridge with the other dudes, you know, and doing a aluminum can route and throw a little meat to them there and stuff once in a while. And that's where I went. And when I got there, the door opened up about this wide, and a little long, white-haired little boy with big brown eyes was looking out at me. And he says, Dad, are you on anything? Ready to slam the door on my face. Well, you know, I looked down at my feet and I said, no. But I said in a shameful way, I says, no. And he opened the door and he let me in. And I went to the phone and I was trying to find something for help in the phone book. And I didn't want to call those AA people because I heard my dad say real bad shit about them guys. You know, I didn't want to call them. And there was nothing in there about Narcotics Anonymous at this time because Narcotics Anonymous didn't exist in the state of Idaho at that time. And so underneath was in parentheses and says, Grapevine Club, a social club. I thought, that's it. Maybe these guys can teach me how to use without having a problem. So I called them guys up, and this dude named Doc S answers the phone, and he says, are you willing to give up drinking and using on an all-time basis? And I just went silent, dead on the end of the phone. Like, what the hell? I mean, could you imagine someone saying that to you and you're full-blown addiction, you know? Ready to give it up? I just want to learn how to use without having a problem. And so I lied to him, and I says, yeah, okay. And he says, what's your address? I don't know why I did it. I gave him my frickin' address. And he says, well, I got a couple guys to come and pick you up. We got a meeting starting in about a half hour. And I'm like, what in the hell did I just do? What is he doing? He's sending people what? Pick me up to go where? You know, it's weird how we get here, isn't it? It's weird. But it gets weirder, okay? Wait until you hear this part. So anyways, I go to put my best clothes I got on at the time, you know, and what they were, you know, you got to remember, this is in the 70s, disco days. So I had this brown polyester suit and had the big brown pointy collars on it. And I had a tan nylon shirt with brown trim around it with big pointies. And then I had the brown pants and then I had shoes, my tennis shoes with a hole in them, my big toes sticking out. Well, anyways, I went to get that to put it on, and I opened the door in the closet, and I looked at it, and I'm like, what the hell happened to my suit? It's all snarled and snagged up. The cat got in there and was hanging on it. So I put it on anyways and still went. And so these guys, right when I'm putting the coat on, there's this banging on the door, and my screen door's pounding off the hinges, and he's banging on the freaking door. And I look out there, and there's this like 6'4", 6'6" guy with a big 10-gallon cowboy hat on, like Hoss Cartwright wears, you know. And so he's just ripping the freaking door off, and there's this little tiny guy about this tall standing behind him with a little flat carny guy hat on from the carnival with a big cigar sticking in his mouth. And this guy had long gray hair down to his shoulders and a big long gray beard all the way down to his nuts. Not kidding. For real. And it didn't look very attractive to me. I really didn't want to go. But they were tearing the freaking door off. It wasn't letting up. And so I opened the door up, and the guy grabs me and pulls me outside. Come on, we got to go. The meeting's starting. He throws me in this truck. It was like a 1964 beat-up piece of shit Chevy truck. And it had 2 side racks on it, and it was filled with horse shit clear to the top. They just got done cleaning out their stalls, you know, and so it had horse shit all piled up in there, and they threw me in the middle. And off we went to my first meeting. Well, on the way there, I'm feeling these boys out. You know, I want to make damn sure that they're going to teach me how to use without having a problem. So what do? They start saying no to everything. We don't do that. We don't smoke no pot. We don't drink no beer. We don't do this. We don't do this. And I'm like, what the hell do you do? You don't do anything? Huh? Nothing? You guys crazy? Not even one? So anyways, I'm thinking, well, you know, we're getting to this corner and down the street is the bridge. Not too far from there, down on the road. And we get there and I'm thinking I'm going to bail out the door. And I'm looking at that little shit. You know, I know I can shove his ass out that door and get the hell out of there. So here's what happens. I go to do that. And the farmer Dave, he yells over to him and he says, cowboy, lock your door, Pat. He's going to try to go out on us. And he locks the door. I try to shove him out the door. He grabs me by the arm. And I come around, I'm going to hit him inside the goddamn head. And Pat grabs that arm, and I about throw him over the seat. And then I'm trying to hit him, and I'm pulling him over. And then the truck, he's going like this on the steering wheel, and the truck's all over the goddamn road like this. And I know we're losing some shit out the back. It was full of horse shit. I know some of that's falling out the back. So anyways, I'm thinking like, where in the fuck are the cops when you need one? Holy shit. Not a cop in sight. So anyways, they get me to that first meeting. And you guys ever watched the Three Stooges? And this is really weird too. I don't know how in the hell they ever got me in the room this way. But it worked. So he goes around, he opens the door up, and Pat gets out, and he's a little short guy. So he pushes my stomach in his back. Of course, I didn't have that. Then he reaches around and grabs him by the arms and we all three start walking like this into the room, you know. And so anyways, we get into the room, and there's a little 1-inch drop off like that. And Pat pulls out of the way, and I trip over that and hit this 4x4 post, and in the corner I hit. And I went and hit in the corner, and the smoke was about that deep. You know, smoke was about that deep in there. And I go hide in the corner. And, you know, I'm thinking, you know, at this time, you know, I was a loyal member to the Moose Lodge. And so I'm sitting in there now, I calmed down a bit, not so mad, but I calmed down a bit, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, God, there's got to be at least 15 or 20 potential Moose members in here. So I'm thinking about signing them up in the Moose Lodge at my first meeting, you know. So anyways, at the end of the meeting, they gave the newcomers an opportunity to say something. Right, so I stood up and start giving my best Moose Lodge pitch I could give them, you know. And I'm telling you, man, these guys were laughing so hard that you could hear, I know they could be heard. They were crying, they were laughing so hard. And I got a resentment, you know, because I was freaking serious. And they were laughing at me, and it pissed me off. You know, so that's how I came to you. That's my story, how I came to you. Here's what happened. Also, when I was sitting in that room, I have to share with you, it is the first time in my life I actually felt hope. I felt it that day in that room. I felt hope. It was an AA meeting, but I felt hope. I didn't feel like I was alone. I felt like for the first time in my life, I found people that when they said, even though I didn't believe them all the time, they had 30 days, that they weren't lying. I'm like, how in the hell can somebody go 30 days? It was like it couldn't happen for me, you know, and it did. After that meeting, also, one guy, after he got done laughing, he says, you know, Chet, back then they called me CW. He said, CW, he says, when you go home tonight, he says, why don't you thank God for your day? When you get up in the morning, why don't you ask God to help you? He says, then why don't you come to a meeting with us and hang around us? I did that. I went to a meeting every day for my first 3 years. In the course of that first 3 years, after I had about 18 months, there was 2 members sitting in that room that wanted to start a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. John and Wes, John H. and Wes T. And an old timer named Gordon L. at the time, he took John H. and drove him all the way to Van Nuys. And they met with Jimmy and brought back the literature to start our first Narcotics Anonymous meeting that stuck in the state of Idaho. So here's what they did. They asked me before they left, they says, we want you to help us. And I says, we want to start a new group, a new meeting. And I says, what's that? They said, Narcotics Anonymous. And I said, what in the fuck is that? Word for word is what I said, because I never heard of it. What in the bad word is that? And you know what? Narcotics Anonymous from that point on started from that one meeting. Do you know that my sponsee right here, this man, he is involved with the oldest still surviving group of Narcotics Anonymous in the state of Idaho and keeps it going right there. These two, Jackie and Joe. I can't tell you how much I love them. And it's called the Sunday Sunshine. And it was that group. See, there was the first group was called the Joy of Living. And that group eventually died. It got stolen by another 12-step fellowship from us. They came in and voted us out and took the meeting place. Another resentment, but that's a long story. I already dealt with it. But Sunday Sunshine survived. And they were meeting over on Willow Lane off State Street there in Boise. And I remember standing out there one day and seeing Jimmy K walking up to that group with Bob B to come check our group out. This is about maybe 3 years before Jimmy passed. And they didn't have a lot of time to stay because they were going to do something for NA that they had to get going. But they just had a short layover. They came in long enough to say hi to us, and they left. And you know, it was that group, the Sunday Sunshine group, that got the literature for us to sit down and also be a part of writing the basic text, editing the basic text. So they introduced me into that, and I still have a lot of my old stuff from that time. But you know what? I never knew at that time whether or not Narcotics Anonymous would really survive. You know, I kind of had a doubt whether it would make it because of the challenges and the struggles, you know, with the money being stolen for the printing of the book, with all the conflict that went on with the 3rd edition into the revised edition and all this stuff. You know, it didn't look good sometimes, but you know what? We survived it. You know, we survived it all. And now, what I'm talking about tonight is discovering who you are. I want to tell you that when I got a sponsor and I went through the process of the 12 steps, and what happened to me, I was working steps that Vito put out a long time ago that I thought Jimmy put out, but Vito and Bob, Greg had a lot to do with it. I found out 2 years ago it was them guys that gave it to Jimmy. And we had been working that all these years. It's how Joe's done the steps. It's how I've done the steps. It's how all my sponsees have done the steps all those years. And I have to tell you that when I did an honest first step, and I came to believe in my own personal powerlessness, that if I picked up that I couldn't stop, I believed it. I also had to lose the obsession. 5 minutes. I also had to work on the obsession. You know, and they say that, you know, in the third tradition, they talk about the desire to use, but, you know, or desire to be a member. But you also, I found for me, it was necessary to lose the desire to use, because once I lost my desire to use through the process of the steps of working, not just working the steps, but living the steps in here, not wearing steps out here on my sleeve and just talking a goddamn good fucking program so everybody can see how wonderful my ass is. I'm talking about living steps that really bring about a psychic change in our mind so we quit living what we were when we came here. We don't have to be that no more. We are survivors. We were society's outcasts, and today we're the winners. We are the winners because we have done something about our problem. The old lie is dead. We do recover from a hopeless state of mind and body. And we learn how to live the life that we really desire. When I got past that first step, the hardest part for me was to see how I created my own personal unmanageability. I couldn't see how I created these problems. I always was blaming everybody else, but when I accepted the fact that and took the responsibility for what I had created, then I could understand that, hey, there is something out there greater than me that can help me solve my living problems. My higher power. When I accepted the higher power and started using it in my daily living, then changes really started to happen for me. I didn't have to remain the same old pitiful whatever I thought I was when I came here, because see, in the text it says that many of us had these behaviors long before we ever used. What I was a product of my environment, what I grew up in, what I was raised to be. See, so today, thank God for Narcotics Anonymous, because when I went through my whole life history, I started to realize putting the pin at the beginning of every brick I put up in that wall, every fear I had, I could identify the beginning and how it was created from the moment it evolved in my life, and how I was shutting everybody out, not letting nobody in. Nobody could penetrate that wall. But you know, I want to tell you about my daughter. When I shared that whole life story with somebody, I got to make this quick. When I shared my whole life story with another living human being, God and myself, because the pain of not doing it was greater than the pain of things happened. I got right to that sixth step, and on my knees, I gave my daughter to the God of my own understanding. I left my daughter in my higher power's care. I left my daughter in his protection. And I didn't have to live with the pain in my recovery that it was causing me anymore. And I did that with every defect I had on my knees, one at a time, gave everyone, they're not mine no more, I don't own them, time to live something new, time to find distractions that are positive in my life, like maybe going to the meetings, learning how to do the steps, and sponsoring somebody. My sponsee, my sponsor. Thank God for Narcotics Anonymous, because it was through you guys and through Narcotics Anonymous and my relationship that I had built with that power greater than me that allowed me to go way deep inside and find out who Chet was for the first time in my life, discover and uncover me, and let me be revealed to you so you can see who in the hell I really am. Because what I say to you here is the same thing I say wherever I go. Because I am who I say I am wherever I am. I'm not anything different no more. I don't have to be Rock Hudson or Elvis Presley. Or, you know, I don't have to watch soap operas to get pickup lines anymore. You know what I mean? I'm free from active addiction. And with freedom from active addiction comes a positive attitude of living life without the use of drugs. We are free. Think of it. Free. Free not to live like we did no more. Because God brought us here. See, the last thing I'll finish with is that God let me live through everything I should have died in because he had a purpose for me, but I just didn't realize it until I got here. My purpose tonight is to fuck up your shit. That's what my purpose is. To make you think about what the hell you're doing if you're doing something. If you're not doing something, you're all right. You know, but I went through a lot to get here today. And because of my recovery, I made it. And you know what? When I got here, I wasn't wanting to kill anybody because of all the shit that was happening at me. And I didn't want to yell at anybody or cause anybody no harm. All I wanted to do was just to come here and relax and sweat my ass off and have a wonderful, glorious time. Enjoy life. The 12th step is all about the joy of living. That's what it's about. The joy of living. Think of it. Thank you.